The stars looked the same as they always had from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Admiral Vexthora stood with his 4 arms crossed behind his back, watching the endless darkness of space through the massive viewing window. His purple skin had small scales that caught the light from the ship's controls. His 6 yellow eyes moved slowly across the starfield, looking for anything unusual. The Third Fleet had been patrolling this area for 3 months now. 17 ships moved together in perfect formation through the Kepler Nebula. The nebula was a cloud of gas and dust that stretched across several light years. It was beautiful, with swirling colors of red, blue, and gold. But Admiral Vexthara was not here to look at pretty colors. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had conquered 47 different alien species. Their technology was the most advanced anyone had ever seen. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their shields could stop any attack. At least that is what everyone believed. Commander Yelsha walked up to the Admiral. She was younger than him, with bright green eyes and darker purple skin. Her voice was quiet and respectful when she spoke. "Admiral, the sensor sweeps are complete for this sector. No signs of enemy activity. No unknown ships. All trade routes are clear." Admiral Vexthara nodded slowly. "Good. The Emperor expects us to keep these borders safe. The outer colonies depend on us." He paused and looked at the swirling nebula gases. "Sometimes I wonder if we will ever find a real challenge out here. It has been so long since we fought anyone who could actually fight back." Commander Yelsha smiled a little. "The Empire is too strong, Admiral. What species would be foolish enough to attack us? Our technology is centuries ahead of anyone else." The Admiral was about to answer when every alarm on the bridge started making noise at once. Red lights flashed everywhere. Officers jumped up from their stations and started pressing buttons and reading displays very fast. "What is happening?" Admiral Vexthara demanded. The sensor officer, a thin Zephyrion with very pale skin, looked up from his station with wide eyes. "Admiral, we are detecting a massive space distortion. Something is opening a rift in space about 50,000 kilometers directly ahead of us." "A rift? What kind of rift?" The Admiral walked quickly to the sensor station. "Unknown, sir. The energy readings are completely different from our hyperspace drives. The patterns do not match anything in our databases. And sir, the energy levels are enormous." Admiral Vexthara felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. "Put it on the main screen." The huge viewing window changed to show the space directly in front of their fleet. At first, everything looked normal. Stars twinkled in the distance. The nebula gases moved slowly, like ocean waves. Then something began to happen that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. Space itself started to tear open. It began as a tiny crack, like someone had drawn a thin red line across the darkness, but the crack grew longer and wider. Red light poured out of it, angry and violent. The light was not like anything they had ever seen. It hurt to look at directly. The tear in space made sounds that came through their ship's hull, deep groaning noises like a giant animal in pain. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Vexthara ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking a little. "Raise shields. Charge weapons, unknown contact emerging from spatial anomaly." The 17 ships of the Third Fleet moved into attack formation. They had practiced this thousands of times. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. The Eternal Dominion moved to the center, with the smaller cruisers and destroyers spreading out on both sides. Their weapons powered up with bright blue and green lights. The tier in space was now almost a kilometer wide. The red light coming from inside it was getting brighter. Strange energy patterns danced around the edges like lightning. Then slowly something began to come through. First, they saw a dark shape moving in the red light. It was hard to see clearly because the light was so bright and wild. But as it came closer to their side of the tier, they could see it was a ship. But what a ship it was! The vessel that emerged was like nothing in any Imperial database. It was long and sleek, maybe 2 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was completely black, so dark that it seemed to eat the light around it. There were no visible windows, no bright lights, no decorations. It looked deadly and efficient, like a weapon built for only one purpose. "By the Emperor's name," whispered Commander Yelsha. "What is that thing?" The black ship finished coming through the tier. As soon as it was completely through, the red rift began to close behind it. Space healed itself like a wound, leaving no sign that anything had happened. The strange ship just hung there in space, not moving, not making any sounds. Admiral Vexthara studied the alien vessel carefully. Sensor readings, now. The sensor officer worked frantically at his controls. "Admiral, this is very strange. I can detect the ship's mass and size, but I cannot read any energy signatures. No power core readings, no weapon signatures, no shield emissions. It is like the ship is completely dead, but it is obviously not dead because it just flew through a hole in space. Life signs? Unknown, sir. Something is blocking our bioscanners. We cannot tell if anyone is alive on that ship." The Admiral thought for a moment. This was a situation he had trained for but never expected to face. First contact with a completely unknown alien species. The Imperial protocols were very clear about what to do. Open a communication channel, all frequencies. A young officer. At the communication station, press several buttons. "Channel open, Admiral." Admiral Vexthara stepped forward and spoke in his most official voice. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Vexthara of the Zephyrian Imperial Third Fleet. You have entered Imperial space without permission. Identify yourself immediately and state your intentions." They waited. Seconds passed, then minutes. The black ship did not respond. It did not move. It just floated there like a piece of space debris. "Try again," the Admiral ordered. "All known languages." The communications officer tried 17 different alien languages. He sent mathematical signals. He tried music patterns. Nothing worked. The strange ship remained silent. Commander Yelsha moved closer to the Admiral. "Sir, what are your orders? Should we consider this ship a threat?" Admiral Vexthara looked at the mysterious vessel again. Something about it made him very uncomfortable. It was too quiet, too still. Ships needed power to run their life support systems. Ships needed energy to maintain their position in space. This ship seemed to be doing everything with no power. At all, that was impossible. Send a warning shot, he decided. Fire one plasma bolt across their bow. Maybe that will get their attention. The weapons officer looked up. "Yes, Admiral." Firing one plasma charge. The Eternal Dominion's main plasma. Cannon charged up with a low humming sound. Energy built up in the weapon until it glowed bright blue. Then it fired. A brilliant bolt of superheated plasma streaked across space toward the alien ship. The bolt was aimed to pass just in front of the ship's nose. It was not meant to hit, just to show that the Imperial fleet was armed and ready to fight. What happened? Next would be talked about in Imperial military academies for the next 100 years. The plasma bolt, traveling at nearly the speed of light, simply disappeared when it got close to the black ship. It did not hit a shield. It did not bounce off. The hull. It just vanished completely, like it had never existed at all. Every person on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion stared in shocked silence. Did our weapons malfunction? Admiral Vexthara asked quietly. The weapons officer checked his instruments. 3 times. No, sir, the plasma cannon fired normally. The bolt was on target, but something made it disappear before it could reach the alien ship. Their shields absorbed it? No energy readings, sir. No shield signatures at all. The plasma just stopped existing. Admiral Vexthara felt that cold feeling in his stomach get much worse. In over 30 years of military service, he had never seen technology that could make weapons simply vanish. Even the most advanced shields produced energy readings when they stopped an attack. This ship had done something impossible. The black ship began to move. It did not accelerate slowly like normal ships. It did not turn using thrusters or engines. One moment it was sitting still, and the next moment it was rotating to face the Imperial fleet directly. The movement was smooth and silent, like a living creature turning its head. "Admiral," the communications officer said with excitement in his voice, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien ship. Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the inside of the alien ship's bridge. What they saw made several officers step backward in surprise. The alien was obviously female, with pale skin and long dark hair tied back in a simple style. Her eyes were a strange blue color that seemed to look right through the screen into their souls. She wore a dark uniform with no decorations except for small metal symbols on her collar. Behind her, they could see other aliens working at stations that looked far more advanced than anything on Imperial ships. But the most shocking thing was that she looked almost exactly like a Zephyrian. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, 2 eyes. If not for her strange coloring and smaller size, she could have been one of them. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, and she spoke in perfect High Imperial, the formal language used only by the highest levels of government. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Retribution. You fired upon my vessel without provocation or warning. Under the Sol Accords, this constitutes an act of war. However, I am prepared to overlook this hostile action if you withdraw your fleet immediately and allow us to continue our mission." Admiral Vexthara could not believe what he was hearing. This unknown alien was telling him, an admiral of the Imperial fleet, to withdraw. The idea was so ridiculous that he almost laughed. Instead, he stepped forward and spoke in his most commanding voice. "I am Admiral Vexthara of the Zephyrian Empire. You are in Imperial space. No ships may travel here without Imperial permission. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be boarded." The alien captain, named Sarah Chun, looked at him for a long moment. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes became harder and colder. "Admiral, I will say this only once more. You fired upon my ship without cause. Remove your fleet from this area within the next 60 seconds, or I will consider your actions a declaration of war against humanity." "Humanity?" Commander Yelsha whispered, "What is humanity?" Admiral Vexthara had heard enough. This alien, this human, clearly did not understand who she was dealing with. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered every species they had ever encountered. Their technology was supreme. Their military was invincible. One small alien ship, no matter how strange, could not threaten an entire Imperial fleet. "You have made a grave mistake, human," the Admiral said. "You are facing the 3rd Fleet of the Zephyrian Empire. 17 ships with enough firepower to destroy your pathetic vessel 1,000 times over. Surrender now, and you may live to serve the Empire?" Captain Sarah Chun nodded slowly, like she had expected this answer. "I see, Admiral, you have chosen war. I'm sorry for what must happen next." The transmission ended. The screen went black. Admiral Vexthara turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, prepare for attack. Target that vessel and destroy it." But before the weapons officer could respond, something happened that changed everything. The human ship moved again, but this time it did something that made every Zephyrian on every ship in the fleet question everything they thought they knew about the universe. The black ship flickered like a light being turned on and off very quickly. For just a moment, it seemed to be in several different places at once. Then it was back where it started, hanging in space like nothing had happened. "What was that?" Admiral Vexthara demanded. "I do not know, sir," the sensor officer replied with fear in his voice. "For 1.7 seconds, our sensors detected that ship in 17 different locations simultaneously. That should be impossible." The Admiral stared at the human ship with growing dread. Whatever technology they possessed was beyond anything the Empire had ever seen, but it was too late to back down now. He had made his choice. The Empire would not retreat from one alien ship, no matter how advanced it seemed. "All ships, attack. Formation Beta," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The 3rd Fleet opened fire. The 3rd Fleet fired everything they had at the single human ship. 17 Imperial vessels unleashed their full power in one massive attack. Plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid belts sent bright streams of energy across space. Missile batteries launched hundreds of explosive warheads. Energy beams that could cut through the thickest armor sliced through the darkness. The light from all those weapons was so bright that the automatic filters on every viewing screen activated to protect the crews from being blinded. The attack created a sphere of pure destruction around the human ship. No vessel in the galaxy could survive that much firepower. Admiral Vexthara watched with satisfaction as the weapons struck their target, but his satisfaction lasted only 3 seconds. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, the human ship was still there. It hung in space exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. Not even a scratch marked its black hull. The massive attack that should have vaporized the vessel had accomplished nothing at all. "Impossible," whispered Commander Yelsha. "How did it survive?" The sensor officer was pressing buttons frantically, trying to understand what had happened. "Admiral, I am reading 0 damage to the target vessel. All our weapons appear to have missed completely." "Missed?" Admiral Vexthara could not believe what he was hearing. How could 17 ships miss one target? "Our targeting computers are perfect. Sir, the weapons were on target when they fired, but something happened to them before they reached the ship. The plasma bolts just disappeared. The missiles stopped existing. The energy beams bent away from the target like they hit some kind of invisible wall." Admiral Vexthara stared at the human ship with growing fear. Whatever technology they possessed was so far beyond Imperial science that it might as well be magic. But fear quickly turned to anger. The Empire did not retreat. The Empire did not surrender. And the Empire did not lose to single ships commanded by unknown aliens. All ships, second attack wave. Focus all fire on one section of their hull. Maybe we can overload whatever is protecting them? The 17 ships prepared to fire again. This time they would concentrate their weapons on the front section of the human vessel. If they could hit the same spot with enough power, surely they could break through any defense, but before they could fire, the human ship finally responded. The black vessel turned slowly until its nose pointed directly at the Imperial fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then 3 small sections on the ship's hull opened up. From these openings came 3 objects that looked like tiny metal balls. Each ball was no bigger than a person's head. "What are those?" "Commander Yelsha." The sensor officer studied his instruments. "Unknown objects, very small mass. They appear to be some kind of projectile or probe. Moving toward our fleet at Admiral, this cannot be right." "What?" "The objects are accelerating to 12% of light speed. That velocity should be impossible for such small masses." Admiral Vexthara watched as the 3 tiny objects moved toward his fleet. They did not look dangerous. They were just small metal balls. How much damage could such tiny things do to massive warships? He was about to find out. The first object reached the cruiser Stellar Pride. The ball was moving so fast that it passed completely through the ship's shields like they were not there at all. It struck the cruiser's hull and punched it perfectly. Round hole through the armor, through the ship's interior, and out the other side. The hole was exactly the same size as the object that made it, but that was not the strange part. The strange part was what happened next. Every system on the Stellar Pride stopped working at exactly the same moment. The lights went out. The engines shut down, the weapons powered down. The life support systems failed. In less than 2 seconds, a state-of-the-art Imperial cruiser became a dead piece of metal floating in space. The second object hit the destroyer. Quick strike with the same result. A tiny hole appeared in the ship's hull, and every system on board failed instantly. The third object struck the battlecruiser Iron Hammer and turned it into another floating piece of debris. 3 ships, 3 small objects. 3 vessels that were now completely helpless. "Report!" Admiral Vexthara shouted. "What happened to those ships?" The communications officer tried to contact the damaged vessels. "Admiral, I am receiving emergency signals from all 3 ships. They report complete system failure. No power to any systems. Life support is running on emergency batteries only." "How is that possible? Those objects were tiny." The sensor officer looked up from his station with a pale face. "Admiral, I think I understand what happened. The objects appeared to have been made of some kind of exotic matter. When they passed through the ships, they disrupted the molecular bonds in all electronic systems. Every computer, every circuit, every piece of technology on those ships has been permanently destroyed. Admiral Vexthara felt like the floor was falling away beneath his feet. 3 ships disabled by tiny projectiles that his best scientists could not understand. And the human vessel showed no signs of damage or strain from the attack. The communication system activated again. Captain Sarah Chun appeared on the main screen. Her expression was still calm, but there was something sad in her eyes now. "Admiral Vexthara," she said quietly, "I disabled 3 of your ships as a demonstration. The crews are unharmed, but those vessels will never function again. I could have destroyed them completely, but I chose not to. This is your final warning. Remove your remaining ships from this area immediately." The admiral tried to speak with authority, but his voice came out smaller than he intended. "How did you do that? What kind of weapons are those?" "They are not weapons, Admiral. They are tools. Simple kinetic projectiles made from compressed dark matter. The technology is quite basic by our standards." "Basic?" Commander Yelsha spoke before she could stop herself. "You just disabled 3 warships with objects the size of a person's head, and you call that basic?" Captain Chun looked at the commander with something that might have been pity. "Commander, your ships use fusion reactors for power. Your weapons operate by heating plasma to high temperatures. Your shields work by generating electromagnetic fields. This technology is very old. We stopped using such methods over 200 years ago. What do you use now?" Admiral Vexthara asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "We draw energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. Our weapons manipulate space-time itself. Our defenses exist partially outside of normal dimensional space. The gap between our technologies is not small, Admiral. It is enormous." The Admiral stared at the human captain. Every word she spoke made less sense than the last. Quantum vacuum energy, manipulating space-time, existing outside normal dimensions. These concepts were so far beyond imperial science that they sounded like fantasy stories. "I do not believe you," he said finally. "No species can have such advanced technology. You are trying to frighten us with lies." Captain Chun nodded slowly. "I understand your skepticism, Admiral. Your species has been the most advanced in this region for a very long time. You have never encountered anyone who could challenge your superiority, but I'm not lying to you. Let me demonstrate." The human ship began to move in ways that made every person watching question what they thought they knew about physics. First, it accelerated to incredible speed without showing any signs of engine thrust. Then it stopped instantly without any deceleration period. Then it began to rotate in 3 different directions at the same time, which should have been impossible for a solid object, but the most impossible thing happened next. The ship split into 5 identical copies of itself. Each copy was exactly the same size and shape as the original. Each one moved independently through space. The Imperial sensors detected 5 separate vessels, each with the same mass and dimensions. As the first one, "By the Emperor's sacred name," whispered Commander Yelsha. "How are there 5 of them?" The 5 ships moved around the Imperial fleet in a complex pattern, weaving between the warships like dancers performing an ancient ritual. Then, just as suddenly as they had separated, the 5 vessels came back together and merged into one ship again. Captain Chain's voice came through the communication system again. "That was a simple dimensional shift maneuver, Admiral. Each copy existed in a slightly different phase of space-time. From your perspective, it appeared that we had duplicated our ship. From our perspective, we were simply showing you different aspects of the same vessel existing in parallel dimensions." Admiral Vexthara sat down heavily in his command chair. His mind could not process what he had just witnessed. Ships that could split into multiple copies? Technology that operated in parallel dimensions? Weapons that could disable Imperial warships with tiny projectiles? "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. "Nothing, Admiral. We are not here to conquer your empire or steal your resources. We are explorers. We came to this region to study the nebula's unique properties. We had no intention of encountering your fleet. Then why do you refuse to submit to Imperial authority? Captain Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was very soft. Admiral, do you remember what it was like when your people first developed space travel? When you looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there? When every new discovery filled you with excitement and hope? Of course. That was over 1,000 years ago. For humanity, that feeling never stopped. We explore because we must. We learn because knowledge itself has value. We grow stronger not by conquering others, but by pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Your empire has forgotten this. You have become comfortable with being the strongest species in your region. You have stopped growing. Admiral Vexthara felt a flash of anger. The empire has conquered 47 species. We rule over 300 star systems. We are the greatest civilization in galactic history. And yet, Captain Chun said gently, when faced with something new and unknown, your first response was to attack. You did not try to communicate. You did not attempt to learn. You simply tried to destroy what you did not understand. This is not the behavior of a great civilization, Admiral. This is the behavior of a species that has become afraid. The words hit Admiral Vexthara like a physical blow. Afraid? The Empire was not afraid of anything? They were the supreme power in this part of the galaxy. But as he looked at the human ship hanging in space, completely unharmed by the most powerful attack his fleet could deliver, he realized that Captain Chun might be right. What happens now? He asked. That is your choice, Admiral. You can continue to fight us and we will defend ourselves. I promise you that the results will not be pleasant for your fleet. Or you can withdraw your ships and report this encounter to your superiors. Tell them that humanity has come to this region of space. Tell them that we are not their enemies, but we will not submit to their authority either. Admiral Vexthara looked around his bridge. Every officer was watching him, waiting for his decision. 3 of his ships were already disabled. The human vessel had demonstrated technology that was centuries beyond anything the Empire possessed. And the human captain had offered him a way to retreat with honor, but Admiral Vexthara was a proud Zephian. He had served the Empire for 30 years. He had never retreated from a battle in his entire career. The idea of withdrawing from one alien ship went against everything he believed. I cannot retreat, he said finally. The Empire does not run from anyone, Captain Chun nodded sadly. I was afraid you would say that, Admiral. I am truly sorry for what must happen next. The communication ended. The human ship began to move. Again, and Admiral Vexthara realized that he had just made the biggest mistake of his military career. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Vexthara watched the human ship prepare for battle and felt fear creep into his heart. But he was a military officer of the Zephyrian Empire. Fear was something he could control. Pride was something he could not. All remaining ships, attack formation Gamma, he ordered. We will surround the enemy vessel and attack from all directions at once. They cannot defend against 14 ships firing simultaneously. The Imperial fleet moved into position around the human ship. Each vessel took a different angle of attack. The plan was simple but effective. Even if the humans could defend against attacks from one direction, they could not possibly stop weapons fire coming from every direction at the same time. But as the Imperial ships moved into position, something strange happened. The human vessel began to glow with a soft blue light. The glow started at the front of the ship and spread backward until the entire hull was covered in the mysterious light. Admiral, the sensor officer called out, I am detecting massive energy. Build-ups from the human ship. The readings are unlike anything I have ever seen. What kind of energy? Unknown, sir. The patterns do not match any known power source. And sir, the energy levels are increasing exponentially. If this continues, the readings will exceed our instrument's ability to measure. Admiral Vexthara gripped the arms of his command chair. All ships, fire immediately. Do not wait for final positioning. The 14 remaining Imperial ships opened fire at the same time. Hundreds of plasma bolts, energy beams, and missiles streaked toward the human vessel from every direction. The combined attack was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. The human ship did something that made every Zephyrian officer question their understanding of reality. It became larger. The vessel that had been 2 kilometers long suddenly stretched to 4 kilometers. Then 6, then 10. The ship expanded in all directions at once, growing bigger and bigger until it was the size of a small space station. As it grew, its hull became transparent like glass, and the Imperial weapons passed right through it without causing any damage. What is happening? Commander Yelsha screamed over the noise of alarms and shouting officers. The ship is changing its dimensional properties, the sensor officer replied, his voice filled with terror. It is existing in a state between solid matter and empty space. Our weapons cannot affect it while it remains in this condition. The giant transparent ship hung in space for several seconds, with Imperial weapons still passing harmlessly through its hull. Then it began to shrink back to its original size. As it became solid again, the blue glow faded away. Admiral Vexthara stared at the human vessel with growing desperation. Every attack his fleet made was turned aside as if it were nothing. Every tactic he tried was countered by technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. The communication system activated. Captain Sarah Chun appeared on the screen again. This time, her expression was harder than before. The sadness was still in her eyes, but now there was something else there too, determination. Admiral, she said quietly, you have attacked my ship multiple times. You have refused every opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Under the Soul Accords, I am now authorized to respond with appropriate force. Do your worst, human, Admiral Vexthara snarled. The Empire has faced every threat in the galaxy and survived. We will not be defeated by one alien ship. Captain. Chun nodded slowly. Very well, Admiral. You have made your choice. The human ship fired, but it did not fire weapons in any way that the Zephyrians understood. Instead of plasma bolts or energy beams, the vessel released what looked like small clouds of silver dust. The clouds drifted toward the Imperial ships very slowly, taking almost a minute to reach their targets. That is their attack? Commander Yelsha asked with confusion. Silver dust? The first cloud reached the destroyer fleet sword. As soon as the dust touched the ship's hull, something incredible happened. The destroyer began to fall apart. Not explosively, like a ship being destroyed by weapons. The destroyer simply came apart piece by piece, as if someone was carefully taking it apart with invisible tools. Sections of hull plating detached and floated away. Internal bulkheads separated from their supports. Even individual components within the ship's systems disconnected from each other. Within 60 seconds, what had been a fully functional warship was now a cloud of separate pieces floating in space. By all the gods, whispered the sensor officer. The dust is disassembling their ship at the molecular level. 2 more clouds. Reached 2 more Imperial vessels. The same thing happened to both ships. They simply fell apart like toys that had been taken apart by a careful child. The crews inside were protected by their emergency suits, but their ships no longer existed as functioning vessels. Admiral Vexthara watched in horror as 3 more of his ships were reduced to floating debris. The silver dust was not destroying the ships with force or heat. It was convincing the materials to stop being ships and become individual components instead. All ships, retreat to maximum weapons range, he ordered. Do not let that dust reach you. The remaining Imperial vessels moved away from the human ship as fast as their engines could carry them, but even at maximum range, they were not safe. The human ship released more clouds of silver dust, and these clouds moved much faster than the first ones. They streaked across space like tiny comets, reaching the fleeing Imperial ships in seconds. 3 more destroyers fell apart. A cruiser came undone like a puzzle being taken apart. Even the mighty battlecruiser Thunder of Victory could not resist the strange attack. Its massive armor plating separated into individual sheets of metal, and its powerful weapon systems disconnected themselves from their power sources. In less than 10 minutes, Admiral Vexthera's proud Third Fleet had been reduced to 3 functional ships. The human vessel hung in space like a dark predator, surrounded by clouds of debris that had once been the most advanced warships in the Empire. "Admiral," the communications officer said with a shaking voice, "we are receiving an emergency transmission." "From Imperial Command. Put it through." The main screen changed to show the bridge of the command station orbiting the Imperial capital world. Admiral Kolthik, the supreme commander of all Imperial forces, appeared on the screen. His face was twisted with rage and disbelief. "Admiral Vexthara, what is your status? We have been monitoring your battle, and our sensors indicate that most of your fleet has been destroyed." "Not destroyed, Supreme Admiral. Disassembled. The human ship uses technology that we cannot understand or counter. I recommend immediate withdrawal and a full report to the Emperor." Admiral Kolthik's 6 eyes blazed with fury. "Withdrawal? Admiral, you are facing one alien ship. One ship against the entire Third Fleet, and you want to retreat. Supreme Admiral, this is not an ordinary enemy. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. They can make our weapons disappear. They can exist in multiple dimensions. They can take apart our ships without even touching them. I do not care if they can make stars dance in circles, Admiral. The Empire does not retreat from anyone, especially not from one ship crewed by unknown aliens." Admiral Vexthara felt desperation creep into his voice. "Supreme Admiral, please listen to me. We need to study this enemy. We need to understand their capabilities before we commit more forces. If we attack them with conventional tactics, we will only lose more ships. Admiral Vexthara, you are relieved of command. Commander Yelsha, you are now in charge of what? Remains of the Third Fleet. Hold your position until reinforcements arrive." Commander Yelsha stepped forward reluctantly. "Supreme Admiral, with respect, Admiral Vexthara is correct. This enemy possesses technology that we cannot match. Perhaps we should consider negotiation." Admiral Kolthik's expression became even more furious. "Negotiation? The Empire negotiates with equals, Commander. We do not negotiate with single ships that attack our fleets. Reinforcements are already on their way. The Fifth Fleet under Grand Admiral Kethmorn is en route to your position. They will arrive in 18 hours. The transmission ended. Commander Yelsha turned to Admiral Vexthara with worry in her eyes. "Admiral, the Fifth Fleet is the Empire's most powerful military force. 200 ships, including the super dreadnought Fist of Empire. If they attack the human ship with everything they have, they will be destroyed," Admiral Vexthara finished quietly, "just like we were. But they will not listen to warnings. The Empire has been supreme for so long that our leaders cannot imagine being defeated." The communication system activated again? Captain Sarah Chun appeared on the screen, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood several other humans, both male and female, all wearing similar dark uniforms. Their faces were serious and sad. "Admiral Vexthara," Captain Chun said, "I monitored your conversation with your superiors. I'm sorry that they refused to listen to reason. More Imperial ships are coming, are they not?" 200 vessels, Admiral Vexthara replied. "The Fifth Fleet. They will not negotiate. They will attack with everything they have. 200 ships." Captain Chin was quiet for a moment. "Admiral, I want you to understand something. We did not come here to fight your empire. We came to study the unique properties of this nebula. We have no interest in conquest or destruction, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Can you defeat 200 ships?" Commander Yelsha asked. Captain Chun looked at her with those strange blue eyes. "Commander, the vessel you have been fighting is not a warship. It is exploration vessel. Its weapons are designed for asteroid mining and scientific research. Its defenses are built to protect against natural hazards like radiation and micrometeorites." Admiral Vexthara felt his blood turn cold. "If this is not a warship, then what are your actual military vessels like? I hope you never have to find out, Admiral. But if your Fifth Fleet attacks us, they will discover the answer to that question." Another human stepped forward on the screen. This one was older, with gray hair and scars on his face. His uniform had more symbols on it than Captain Chung's. Admiral, I am General Marcus Webb, military commander of the human expedition. I have been fighting wars for 40 years. I have seen what happens when overwhelming force meets advanced technology. It is not pleasant. Are you threatening us? Admiral Vexthara asked. No, Admiral, I am warning you. Captain Chain's ship is equipped with tools for exploration and research. My ships are equipped with tools for war. There is a very significant difference between the two. Commander Yelsha stepped forward. How many ships do you have? General Webb smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Commander, we brought 12 vessels to this region. One is Captain Chun's research ship. 3 are support vessels for scientific work. The remaining 8 are military escorts. 8 ships against 200? Commander Yelsha shook her head. Even with your advanced technology, surely you cannot defeat such overwhelming numbers. Commander, General Webb said quietly, those 8 ships were designed to fight entire fleets. Each one is capable of engaging dozens of enemy vessels simultaneously. They were built by a species that learned to wage war in the asteroid belts of their home system, where every battle was three-dimensional and every enemy could come from any direction. Admiral Vexthara thought about the things he had seen, Captain Chun's ship do. If that was just a research vessel, what could actual human warships accomplish? General Webb, he said slowly, if the Fifth Fleet attacks you, what will happen? The human general looked him directly in the eyes. Admiral, your Fifth Fleet will cease to exist. And after that, we will have to assume that your empire represents a permanent threat to human interests. We will respond accordingly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in complete silence. Admiral Vexthara sat in his command chair and realized that in 18 hours everything was going to change. The Empire was about to learn that they were no longer the strongest power in the galaxy, and they were going to learn it the hard way. The Fifth Fleet arrived exactly 18 hours later, just as Admiral Kolthik had promised. 200 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh paint and polished armor. At the center of the massive fleet floated the super dreadnought Fist of Empire, a vessel so large that it had its own gravity field. Grand Admiral Kethmorn stood on the bridge of his flagship and studied the tactical display. The remains of the Third Fleet floated in scattered debris clouds around a single black ship that looked tiny compared to his massive force. He had commanded fleets in 43 battles and conquered 17 star systems. Never once had he faced an enemy that he could not defeat through superior numbers and firepower. Communications, he said in his deep, commanding voice. Contact the surviving ships of the Third Fleet. Commander Yelsha appeared on his main screen. She looked tired and frightened, very different from the confident officer she had been 2 days ago. Behind her, Admiral Vexthara sat quietly in a corner, staring at nothing. Commander Yelsha, Grand Admiral Kethmorn said formally, report the status of your engagement with the alien vessel. Grand Admiral, the human ship has destroyed or disabled 14 of our 17 vessels. Their technology is far beyond anything we have ever encountered. I strongly recommend that we attempt diplomatic contact before engaging in further hostilities. Grand Admiral Kethmorn frowned. Commander, you are suggesting that one alien ship defeated most of the Third Fleet? That is impossible. Sir, I have witnessed their capabilities personally. They can make our weapons disappear. They can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They can disassemble our ships at the molecular level. We cannot defeat them with conventional tactics. Commander, I appreciate your concern, but the Third Fleet was not prepared for alien contact. The Fifth Fleet is different. We have studied the tactical recordings of your engagement. We understand their capabilities now, and we have brought appropriate countermeasures. Admiral Vexthara looked up from his corner. Grand Admiral, with all respect, there are no countermeasures for the technology these humans possess. They operate on principles that our science cannot even understand. Admiral Vexthara, you were relieved of command for cowardice in the face of the enemy. Your opinions are no longer relevant to this discussion. The transmission ended. Grand. Admiral Kethmorn turned to his tactical officer. Analysis of the enemy vessel. Sir, based on the recordings from the Third Fleet, the alien ship appears to use exotic matter manipulation and dimensional phase technology. Our scientists believe that concentrated quantum disruption fields might be able to interfere with their defensive systems. And our new weapons? The World Render Array has been deployed to this sector, Grand Admiral. 6 orbital weapons platforms, each one capable of channeling the energy of a dying star into a focused beam. If the alien ship can resist conventional weapons, let us see how it handles the power of stellar collapse. Grand Admiral Kethmorn smiled with satisfaction. The World Render Array was the Empire's ultimate weapon, held in reserve for over 3 centuries. Each platform was the size of a small moon and required the combined energy output of 6 fusion reactors just to charge its primary weapon. When all 6 platforms fired together, they could destroy entire solar systems. Deploy the fleet in attack. Formation Omega, he ordered. All ships will engage the enemy simultaneously while the World Render Array charges for primary firing sequence. The Fifth Fleet moved into position around the human ship like a massive net closing on a small fish. The formation was perfect, with larger ships providing covering fire while smaller vessels moved to attack positions. It was a textbook example of how to overwhelm a single target through superior numbers and coordination. Captain Sarah Chun watched the Imperial fleet deploy and felt deep sadness in her heart. On her tactical display, she could see 8 new contacts moving into position behind the large Imperial force. The human military escorts had finally arrived. General Webb, she said. Into her communication system, the Imperial fleet is taking attack positions. They have also deployed some kind of massive weapons platform. Energy readings suggest it is designed to channel stellar-level power outputs. General Webb's voice came back calm and steady. Understood, Captain. We are in position. Wolfpack is ready to engage on your signal. Roger, General. Initiating final diplomatic contact. Captain Chen opened a communication channel to the Imperial flagship. Grand Admiral Kethmorn appeared on her screen, and she could see the massive bridge of the super dreadnought behind him. Hundreds of officers worked at control stations that stretched as far as she could see. Grand Admiral Kethmorn, she said. Politely, I am Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Retribution. You have deployed a large military force in response to a peaceful scientific mission. I am prepared to overlook this hostile action if you withdraw your fleet immediately. The Grand Admiral laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his massive bridge. Captain Chun, you are facing the 5th Fleet of the Zephyrian Empire. 200 ships and the most powerful weapons in galactic history. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be taken into custody. Grand Admiral, your 3rd Fleet attempted to attack my ship with 17 vessels. The results were not favorable for your forces. Are you certain you wish to repeat that mistake with a larger fleet? Captain Chun, the 3rd Fleet was not prepared for your unusual technology. We have studied your capabilities and developed appropriate countermeasures. Your ship will not survive the next 5 minutes. Captain Chun nodded sadly. Grand Admiral, I have tried to avoid this conflict, but you have forced my hand. Under the Sol Accords, I am now authorized to request military assistance from General Webb's escort fleet. Escort fleet? Grand Admiral Kethmorn frowned. Our sensors detect only your single vessel. Grand Admiral, perhaps your sensors need recalibration. 8 shapes appeared around the Imperial fleet as if they had materialized from empty space. The human military vessels were sleek and predatory, each one designed for maximum efficiency in combat. They were smaller than the Imperial ships, but moved with fluid grace that suggested incredible maneuverability. Where did they come from? The Grand Admiral demanded. They have been here all along, Grand Admiral. Human stealth technology is quite advanced. We have been observing your fleet since you arrived. Grand Admiral Kethmorn stared at the 8 human warships with growing alarm. If they had been hiding in plain sight for 18 hours, what other capabilities did they possess? 8 ships. Against 200, he said, trying to sound confident. Even with advanced technology, you cannot defeat such overwhelming odds. Grand Admiral, Captain Chun said quietly, you are about to discover why humanity is feared by species that understand our true capabilities. I am truly sorry for what is about to happen to your people. The communication ended. Grand Admiral Kethmorn turned to his weapons officer. All ships, open fire. World Render Array, begin charging sequence. The Fifth Fleet opened fire with everything they had. The attack was 10 times more powerful than the assault that had failed against Captain Chun's ship. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids sent streams of superheated energy across space. Missile batteries launched thousands of warheads in coordinated waves. Energy weapons that could cut through planetary crusts sliced through the darkness. The 8 human military vessels responded in ways that defied every law of physics the Empire understood. The first ship, designated Volf 1, split into a dozen smaller vessels that moved independently through the Imperial formation. Each smaller ship attacked different targets simultaneously, striking with weapons that seemed to ignore distance and time. Imperial ships exploded before their crews even realized they were under attack. The second ship, Volf 2, became transparent and passed directly through the center of the Imperial fleet. As it moved, every ship it touched simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely removed from reality as if they had never been built at all. Volf 3 released clouds of what looked like silver insects. These tiny objects swarmed over Imperial vessels and began taking them apart piece by piece. But instead of destroying the components, they rebuilt them into different shapes. Warships became twisted sculptures of metal and ceramic that could no longer function as vessels. The remaining 5 human ships attacked in ways that Grand Admiral Kethmorn's mind could not process. They moved faster than light without using hyperspace drives. They fired weapons that traveled backward through time to hit targets before they were fired. They created gravity wells that crushed entire squadrons of Imperial vessels into tiny balls of compressed matter. Within 3 minutes, half of the Fifth Fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The super dreadnought Fist of Empire found itself surrounded by human vessels that moved like living creatures, striking from impossible angles with weapons that operated outside the normal laws of reality. World Render Array, fire immediately. Grand Admiral Kethmorn screamed over the noise of alarms and explosions. The 6 massive weapons platforms turned their attention toward the human fleet. Each platform drew power from the stellar cores of nearby stars, channeling energy that could crack planets into focused beams of. We do not absorb it, Grand Admiral, we redirect it. The energy from your weapons has been stored in temporary dimensional pockets and will be returned to you momentarily. The 8th human ship suddenly became very bright. Energy that had been collected from the World Render Array was concentrated and focused into 8 beams that struck the weapons platforms. The platforms, designed to channel stellar energy, could not handle having that same energy directed back at them. All 6 platforms exploded simultaneously, creating 6 small suns that burned brightly for several seconds before fading away. Grand Admiral Kethmorn watched his ultimate weapons destroy themselves and realized that he had made a terrible mistake. The human ships were not just more advanced than Imperial technology. They operated on completely different principles, using forces and energies that the Empire did not even know existed. All ships retreat, he ordered. Maximum speed, scatter formation, but it was too late. The human vessels had positioned themselves around the entire Imperial fleet. As the surviving ships tried to escape, they found their hyperspace drives would not function. Something was preventing them from entering faster-than-light travel. Grand Admiral, his navigation officer reported with terror in his voice, the humans have created some kind of dimensional anchor field. We cannot escape. To hyperspace. One by one, the remaining ships of the Fifth Fleet were disabled or destroyed. The human vessels moved through the Imperial formation like wolves hunting sheep, striking with precision and efficiency that spoke of centuries of military experience. They targeted weapons and engines first, leaving the crews alive but helpless. Within 30 minutes, the most powerful military force in the Empire's history had been reduced to floating debris and disabled hulks. The super dreadnought Fist of Empire hung dead in space, its massive hull broken in 17 places by weapons that had torn through its armor like paper. Grand Admiral Kethmorn sat in his ruined command chair and stared at the 8 human ships as they regrouped around Captain Chain's vessel. In 40 years of military service, he had never imagined that such a defeat was possible. The communication system crackled to life one final time. General Webb appeared on the screen, his scarred face grim but not unkind. "Grand Admiral Kethmorn," he said quietly, "your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews are alive, but your ships are no longer functional. We will provide rescue ships to collect your survivors, but I suggest you use this time to contact your Emperor. Tell him that humanity has arrived in this region of space. Tell him that we are not his enemies, but we will not tolerate further attacks on our vessels. What do you want from us?" The Grand Admiral asked. "We want nothing from you, Admiral. We never did. But your Empire has forced us to reveal our presence earlier than we intended. Now we must decide what to do about a civilization that responds to peaceful contact with military force." The transmission ended, leaving Grand Admiral Kethmorn alone with the wreckage of his fleet and the knowledge that the Empire would never be the same again. Emperor Zarthal sat on his golden throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace and watched the recording of the Fifth Fleet's destruction for the 7th time. His 6 eyes remained fixed on the screen as he saw his most powerful military force reduced to floating debris in less than 30 minutes. 200 ships, including the super dreadnought Fist of Empire and the mighty Worldrender array, destroyed by 8 alien vessels that moved like living shadows through space. The throne room was empty except for the Emperor and his personal guard. All the court officials and military advisors had been dismissed hours ago. He wanted to be alone with the terrible truth that was now clear to everyone in the Empire. They were no longer the supreme power in the galaxy, a soft chime indicated. An incoming communication. The Emperor touched a control on his throne, and a holographic image appeared before him. It was Grand Admiral Kethmorn standing on the bridge of a human rescue vessel. The proud military commander looked older than his years, his uniform torn and his face marked with defeat. "Your Imperial Majesty," the Grand Admiral said with a tired voice, "I have failed you. The Fifth Fleet has been destroyed. Our ultimate weapons proved useless against human technology. I accept full responsibility for this disaster and await your judgment." Emperor Zarthal studied his defeated admiral. "Grand Admiral, tell me honestly, could we have won this battle with any number of ships? 1,000? 10,000? No, Your Majesty. The gap between our technologies is too great. They do not simply have better weapons than us. They understand forces and energies that we do not even know exist. Fighting them with our current technology would be like attacking a modern starship with wooden spears." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. In the 1,000-year history of the Zephyrian Empire, no enemy had ever defeated their forces so completely. Even during the Great Wars of Expansion, battles had been won through superior tactics and determination. This was different. This was not a military defeat. This was proof that another species had evolved far beyond anything the Empire could imagine. "What are the humans doing now?" he asked finally. "They are providing medical aid to our wounded and rescue services for disabled ships. Their behavior is strange, Your Majesty. They show kindness to our people even though we attack them without provocation. They could easily destroy what remains of both fleets, but instead they are helping our survivors." Emperor Zarthal felt something he had never experienced before in his long life. Confusion about what kind of species would possess such overwhelming power and choose to use it with mercy. Every civilization the Empire had encountered followed the same pattern. The strong dominated the weak. The advanced conquered the primitive. But these humans seemed to operate by different rules. "Have they made any demands?" the Emperor asked. No, your majesty, they have not asked for tribute, territory, or submission. They seem genuinely surprised that we attacked them. Their leader, General Webb, has requested permission to speak with you directly. The Emperor considered this request. In imperial tradition, conquered enemies were brought before the throne in chains to beg for mercy. But the humans had not been conquered. If anything, the Empire was now at their mercy. Very well, arrange the communication. The holographic image changed to show a human male with gray hair and scars on his weathered face. General Webb wore a simple dark uniform with minimal decoration. He looked like a soldier who had seen many battles but took no pleasure in violence. Emperor Zarthal, General Webb said with polite respect, I am General Marcus Webb, Commander of the human military expedition to this region. I wish to discuss the current situation between our peoples. General Webb, the Emperor replied carefully, your forces have defeated 2 of our fleets and destroyed our most powerful weapons. By the laws of war, the Empire is now at your mercy. What are your terms for our surrender? General Webb looked confused. Emperor, we are not seeking your surrender. We never intended to fight your empire at all. We came to this region to conduct scientific research. Your forces attacked us, and we defended ourselves. That is all. Then what do you want from us? We want nothing from you, Emperor. We simply want to continue our research without being attacked. Your empire is free to govern itself as it always has. We have no interest in conquest or domination. Emperor. Zarthal stared at the human general with growing bewilderment. General Webb, your technology is centuries ahead of ours. Your 8 ships destroyed our fleet of 200 vessels. You could easily conquer our entire empire. Why do you not do so? General Webb smiled, and for the first time the expression seemed genuinely warm. Emperor, my species learned long ago that true strength does not come from conquering others. It comes from lifting them up. We do not gain anything by destroying civilizations. We gain much more by helping them grow and develop. I do not understand. Every species seeks to expand its territory and increase its power. This is the natural order of things. Perhaps it was the natural order for your species, Emperor, but humanity chose a different path. We discovered that cooperation and mutual growth create far more value than conquest and domination. We became strong not by crushing our enemies, but by turning our enemies into allies. The Emperor felt his worldview cracking like a piece of glass under pressure. Everything he had believed about the nature of power and civilization was being challenged by this conversation. If you do not wish to conquer us, then what will happen now? General Webb was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. Emperor, that depends largely on you. Your empire has ruled this region for 1,000 years through military force. Your subjects obey you because they fear your power. But now everyone knows that human technology is far superior to yours. How do you think your subject species will react to this knowledge? As if summoned by the general's words, another communication signal interrupted their conversation. Emperor Zarthal's communication officer appeared on a secondary screen. Your Imperial Majesty, the officer said with barely controlled panic, we are receiving reports from 12 sectors. Multiple subject species are declaring independence from the Empire. The Centauran Republic has seized control of their home system. The Andromedan Collective has expelled all Imperial forces from their territory. The rebellion is spreading rapidly throughout the outer colonies. Emperor Zarthal closed his eyes and felt the weight of 1,000 years of history pressing down on him. The empire was collapsing not because of human conquest, but because its own subjects no longer feared imperial power. The humans had not needed to fire a single shot at imperial worlds. They had simply demonstrated that the empire's invincibility was an illusion. Your Imperial Majesty, General Webb said gently, I am truly sorry that this has happened. We never intended to destabilize your government. But perhaps this is an opportunity rather than a disaster? An opportunity? My empire is falling apart. Emperor, your empire was built on fear and oppression. The species you conquered served you not out of loyalty or respect, but because they had no choice. That kind of rule never lasts forever. Eventually, someone stronger always comes along. And now you are that someone stronger. No, Emperor. We are not here to replace your empire with our own. We are here to offer a different way forward. Instead of ruling through fear, why not try leading? Through cooperation? Instead of demanding tribute, why not offer mutual benefit? Emperor Zarthal opened his eyes and looked at the human general with new understanding. You are suggesting that we rebuild the empire based on partnership rather than conquest. I am suggesting that you have a chance to create something better than an empire, Your Majesty. You could create a confederation of free species working together for mutual growth and protection. Humanity would be honored to participate in such an organization. Another communication interrupted them. This time it was Captain Sarah Chun, speaking from the bridge of her research vessel. General Webb, Emperor Zarthal, I apologize for interrupting. But I thought you should know that we have completed our analysis of the Kepler Nebula. The results are quite remarkable. What have you discovered, Captain? General Webb asked. The nebula contains concentrations of exotic matter that could revolutionize energy production and space travel. With proper development, this region could become one of the most valuable scientific and industrial centers in the galaxy. But the development would require cooperation between multiple species with different areas of expertise. Emperor Zarthal felt a spark of hope for the first time since the crisis began. Are you saying that the nebula could benefit all the species in this region? Exactly, Your Majesty. The Zephyrians have excellent organizational skills and administrative experience. The Centaurians are gifted engineers. The Andromedans are brilliant scientists. Humanity has advanced technology and experience with large-scale projects. Working together, we could create something magnificent. General Webb nodded approvingly. Captain Chun has identified the path forward, Emperor. Instead of trying to hold on to an empire built on conquest, you could help create a partnership built on mutual benefit. Each species contributes what they do best, and everyone shares in the rewards. Emperor Zarthal stood up from his throne and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. In the distance, he could see spaceports where ships from dozens of different species had once brought tribute to the imperial treasury. Soon, those same spaceports might welcome partners and allies instead of conquered subjects. General Webb, he said finally, if we were to pursue this path of cooperation, would humanity be willing to share its advanced technology with other species? Within reason, yes. We believe that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. Obviously, we would need to be careful about weapons technology and other dangerous applications. But scientific and medical knowledge, improved energy systems, better space travel, these things benefit everyone. And if some species choose not to participate in this new confederation, then they are free to govern themselves as they see fit, as long as they do not attack others. Cooperation must be voluntary to be meaningful. Emperor Zarthal made his decision. General Webb, Captain Chun, I accept your proposal. The Zephyrian Empire hereby dissolves itself and offers to join this new confederation as an equal partner. I will use what remains of my authority to encourage other species to participate peacefully in this transition. Over the following months, the transformation was remarkable. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together on joint projects. The advanced technology that humanity shared was adapted and improved by dozens of different civilizations. The Kepler Nebula became the site of the largest scientific research station in galactic history, with teams from 30 different species working together to unlock its secrets. Admiral Vexthara, who had been the first to encounter the human ship, became the first Zephyrian ambassador to the new Galactic Confederation. Commander Yelsha led a joint military force that protected peaceful ships from pirates and raiders. Grand Admiral Kethmorn retired from military service and became a teacher, sharing his knowledge of space tactics with young officers from many different species. Captain Sarah Chun continued her research, but now she worked alongside scientists from across the galaxy. Her ship, the Retribution, became the flagship of a fleet of research vessels that explored the furthest reaches of space. always seeking new knowledge and new opportunities for cooperation. General Webb established a military academy where officers from different species learned to work together. The lessons taught there were not about conquest and domination, but about protection and service. The strongest defenders, he taught his students, were those who fought not for their own glory, but for the safety of others. And Emperor Zarthal, who had once ruled through fear, became the first president of the Galactic Confederation, elected by the free choice of species who had learned that working together was far more powerful than fighting alone. The war that had lasted 3 days changed the galaxy forever, but in the end, it was not the war that mattered. It was what came after the war. It was the choice to build something better from the ashes of the old. It was the discovery that the strongest civilizations were not those that conquered others, but those that helped others become strong. The stars, for the first time in 1,000 years, shone with the light of hope.